This season, the Boston Celtics battled the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals to have a chance to play the Denver Nuggets in the finals. The Heat took a 3-0 lead in the series where people believed that they would sweep the Celtics. However, Boston started to fight back in the series and make it competitive, with them winning 3 games in a row and forcing a Game 7. In this 7th game, Boston had home court advantage and the momentum to win the series, but they still lost to the Heat. They didn't just lose, they got blown out with their 2 stars, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, not playing that great in the game either. Some stats in the game that showed their star players' lack of productivity is Jason Tatum only taking 13 shots and Jaylen Brown having 8 turnovers. With Miami being the Celtics in the series, it has shown me that this has become a rivalry. The Heat and Celtics have gone against each other the past 3 out of 4 years, where all their playoff series went to 6 or more games. Their rivalry started in the 2019 to 2020 season, where they went against each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. In this matchup, the Heat took a 2-0 lead against the Celtics. Both games were close, with Boston losing by less than 5 points in each game, but they were able to bounce back in Game 3 with a victory against Miami. The Celtics lost by 3 in Game 4, which gave Miami a 3-1 lead. Boston managed to win Game 5, however they lost Game 6 and ultimately lost the series to the Heat. This was the Heat's first time back to the finals since the 2013-2014 season with their big 3 of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. The Heat didn't win this series from their star player Jimmy Butler, but they won through a collective effort from their team. Players like Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Goran Dragic all had excellent games in this series that gave them the edge to beat the Celtics. After the Heat beat the Celtics, they faced the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. The Heat were not able to finish the job of winning a championship, with them losing to the Lakers in 6 games. Next season, the Heat and Celtics didn't play against each other in the playoffs, but instead both teams lost in the first round. Miami and Boston were lower seeds than before, and they seemed to be different teams as well. Boston dealt with a lot of injuries to their players, which gave them more of a disadvantage. The Celtics were even missing one of their best players in Jaylen Brown for the entire series versus the Brooklyn Nets, while the Heat just got outplayed by the Milwaukee Bucks, who went on to win the championship that season. In their matchup against the Bucks, they only had 1 close game, and that was in Game 1, where they lost in overtime by 2 points. In the 2021-2022 season, the Celtics and Heat battled against one another in the Eastern Conference Finals once again, with Miami being the 1st seed and Boston being the 2nd seed. In this series, it started out with games 1 and 2 not being that close, and each team winning one of the 2 games. Game 3 was the first close game in the series, where Miami came up victorious, while in Game 4, the Celtics blew out the Miami Heat. In Game 5, Boston took a 3-2 lead in the series, causing the Heat to have to win Games 6 and 7. Miami managed to win Game 6, but in a close Game 7 that went down to a wire, the Heat lost, which made the Celtics the winners of the Eastern Conference. This allowed the Celtics to score a trip to the finals, where they would lose to the Golden State Warriors in 6 games. In the 2022-2023 season, the Heat and Celtics ended up meeting again in the playoffs to battle for a spot in the finals. However, many people didn't expect them to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. One reason is because that people thought that they would play each other in the first round, with people believing that the Heat would win against the Atlanta Hawks in the play-in tournament and obtain the 7th seed. The Heat went on to lose to the Hawks, which caused them to play the Chicago Bulls for the 8th seed in the playoffs. Miami won their game versus the Bulls, allowing them to make the playoffs. The Heat being the 8th seed is another reason why people didn't think Miami would have success in the playoffs and make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Despite being seen as a team that wouldn't go far in the playoffs, the Heat managed to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals for a 2nd time in a row. The Celtics were already seen as a title contending team this season, so it wasn't surprising to see them make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Even though the Heat ended up winning the series against the Celtics, Boston turned it into a competitive one. With the Heat vs Celtics playoff matchup going to 7 games, I believe that it has solidified these teams turning into rivals. It seems like both teams will be in contention for the playoffs next season, since they will have their star players and some of their key players still on the roster. This means that we'll probably see them play one another in the playoffs again, which will add on to this rivalry. They have battled against each other in recent years that have determined whether they would continue their journey to the playoffs to win a championship. All these factors have played a part in turning the Miami Heat versus the Boston Celtics into one of the new rivalries in the NBA.